Hello, my name is Madeline Barry, and I am with the Biocomputational Engineering program at the University of Maryland. And I'm here to discuss the multimodal radiothermomic biomarkers for breast cancer screening. The outline of this study is comprised of a brief introduction on infrared-based diagnostic systems, low-dimensional presentation of thermal images, the tSNE method for reducing dimensionality and extracting thermomics, the results, and our conclusions. According to the World Health Organization, breast cancer is the second most common cancer in women. Early diagnosis of this deadly disease has a vital role in the survival of patients and in the therapeutic planning. The current gold standard imaging modalities used to detect breast cancer are mammography and magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI. Mammography, when confirmed with biopsy, is the first gold standard used to diagnose breast cancer. Patients with a higher density of breast tissue or other restrictions are often reliant on the MRI screenings. However, this process is relatively expensive and not always applicable to most patients. To tackle the limitations of mammography and MRI, researchers have begun utilizing thermography and infrared images. Thermography, when paired with other established gold standard modalities, has shown a great promise in aiding the early detection of breast cancer. Thermography would best be introduced in the clinical breast examination step, or the CBE, to help doctors with their preliminary assessment of a patient. The thermal images obtained can show a heterogeneous or homogeneous thermal pattern in the region of interest that can be caused by variations in surface temperature. Over here, we can see a homogeneous thermal pattern of a patient that has no abnormalities or lesions, and down below is a heterogeneous thermal pattern of a patient that has a lesion. The abnormal patterns can be caused by angiogenesis or vasodilation. The increase in blood flow is typically caused by a tumor, either benign or malignant, needing a higher amount of blood flow and nutrients than an unaffected area would. Over here, we can also see this is a photo from a mammography where you can see a lesion here. And essentially, we would compare our thermal images that have a heterogeneous heat pattern to it with a mammography image that you can easily see the lesion. To track the variation in surface temperature, two different types of thermography can be applied, either dynamic or static. This study is mainly focused on using the dynamic thermography modality. The full objective of the study is to capture the entire thermal information while suppressing the effect of irrelevant features in high dimensional multivariate data, and to also enhance the reliability of machine learning models. Essentially, we want to compress the data into one image that represents the maximum thermal fluctuation that has occurred over the length of time the images were captured. Thermography images are typically captured sequentially, so a few seconds after each other, and you can see the fluctuation of the heat pattern. And we want to be able to take the number of images that we get from that and compress it into a single image that has the whole fluctuation over that time period into one image. Normally, PCA or PCT is utilized to obtain these features of interest using an eigen decomposition to determine the direction of the maximum variance. However, there are other methods in the eigen decomposition family that are similar that reshape the thermal image as well. These other modalities are sparse PCA, non-negative matrix factorization, or NMF, semi-NMF, convex NMF, and sparse NMF. Ultimately, each of these methods have similar frameworks for minimizing the pairwise distance to compress the data, although different mathematical criteria drive each of the calculations. These methods are great preliminary steps in identifying thermal biomarkers associated with breast cancer. But what if we could find another criteria to reduce the dimensionality of our data? This ultimately brings us to our contribution of utilizing the T-distributed stochastic neighbor embedding method, or tSNE. tSNE minimizes the cost functions of P and Q so that we can measure their statistical similarity rather than the Euclidean pairwise distance using the KL diversion. To test our theory of using the tSNE method to reduce the dimensionality of the thermal sequence to a lower dimensionality, we used a data set for demonstration and comparison. Over here on the left is our training set that was comprised of 55 participants that all had thermal images. The cohort on the right is the multimodal imaging cohort that was made up of 11 participants that had both the thermal images and mammography images. But due to the fact that we had such a low number of participants in the multimodal imaging cohort, we were not able to train our model, and so we are using it more as a feasibility study. So to train our random forest model, we used the training set because it had more more participants, and we were able to have 24 healthy participants and 28 patients that either had a lesion or had symptoms but were without symptoms, and we were able to then train the random forest model with that. Here we can see the dynamic thermography images. Compared down below are the healthy patients that have a homogeneous thermal pattern, and up above is a patient that has a heterogeneous thermal pattern that you can see right over here. There is a variance in the color and thermal temperature. And over to the right are the mammography images that are of the same patient. Down below, again, is the healthy patient that does not have a lesion. And up above is the patient that has a lesion that has caused some difference in the mammography image. All the way over to the right-hand side, these photos are the results from the different eigen decomposition methods. Again, on the right-hand side, we have our healthy patients that have a homogeneous thermal pattern throughout. And on the left-hand side is a patients with lesions that have then caused a heterogeneous thermal pattern. Down at the very bottom is the low dimensional tSNE projected dynamic thermography. And that has shown great promise in the variation of the thermal pattern. So we have a heterogeneous thermal pattern right here that we can see that there is some abnormality. And down below is a patient that has no lesion, so there is a homogeneous thermal pattern. From here, we were able to use tSNE to reduce the dimensionality in both of the cohorts of the training set or the multimodal imaging cohort. And from there, we were able to extract low dimension thermomics, which are also thermal features. And we were able to extract 3 of high significance. And down below, we were able to extract 6 of the low dimensional radiomic features from the multimodal imaging cohort. This was from the mammography images. And from there, we were able to determine that one of the radiomic features and one of the thermomic features had a similar significance to them. And so we were able to, in future studies, if we have more patients to be put into the multimodal imaging cohort, we would be able to then train our model with a lower number of features. To get the 6 and the 3 features of interest, we use the elbow method, which we can see over here. At the top is the 6 that were determined for the radiomic, and down below are the 3 determined for the thermomic using the k-means clustering. The table on the left-hand side is the classification accuracy of the different eigen decomposition modalities, and the tSNE with the combination of clinical and demographics, which were the family history, age, and race, ended up being the second highest in their accuracy with 77.4%. The first highest belonged to the sparse PCT plus clinical and demographic information that actually had a 79.3% accuracy. So in summary, our proposed method of the t-distributed stochastic neighbor embedding, or tSNE method, showed great promise in a high accuracy of detecting a abnormality in the heterogeneous thermal pattern. The method was then assessed to the state-of-the-art matrix factorization methods in thermography and was tested on the 55 breast cancer screening cases, which was the training set. And tSNE showed the considerable performance of 77.4% accuracy compared to the highest accuracy measured, which was again the sparse PCT plus clinical information with a 79.3% accuracy. For future works, we would like to have to further investigate higher dimensional thermomics and their effect on the output that is given, and improving the tSNE method to make it more efficient for such applications. Thank you.